Last year, I listened to George Gilder's revised edition of Wealth and Poverty. Soon after I finished that book, he released Life After Google, which primarily focuses on blockchains and advertising subsidized freemium service models. It addresses their relationship with dives into computational resource distribution, telecom networks, and the politics of money. This book is titled similarly to Gilder's early 90s release, Life After Television, which addressed the rise of the internet in that decade. As that book addressed the technology that changed lives around the world in the decade that followed, the writer believes token and blockchain-based distributed ledgers are preparing to do the same. This next section is a collection of notes and quotes that I took while reading it. How many breaches and false promises of repair will it take before the very idea of the network will become suspect? Newton's modern critics fail to appreciate how his alchemical endeavors yield crucial knowledge for his defense of the gold-based pound, meaning he knew that it was generally immutable. Perhaps the most important result of free commerce was the end of slavery. Reliable money and free and efficient labor markets made ownership of human laborers unprofitable. Commerce eclipsed physical power. There is no free lunch. This is a note that I wrote down in regards to net neutrality. Data wants to be free, but not without cost. As Jerry Bauer writes in Forbes, if advertising dies as support for media, then what we call media dies too. The whole system, which started with newspapers, moved on to radio, then TV, then various forms of blogging and streaming, is basically the same business model. Gather a bunch of people together who think that they're for one thing, but are really there for something else. It's a bait and switch, and no one likes it. George offers up the term cryptocosm to represent the collective efforts of token and blockchain technology, all the variety of services that are trying to be rendered on blockchains. The current generation in Silicon Valley has yet to come to terms with the findings of von Neumann and Gödel early in the last century, or with the breakthroughs in information theory of Claude Shannon, Gregory Chaitin, Kolmogorov, and John R. Pierce. In a series of powerful arguments, Chaitin, the inventor of algorithmic information theory, has translated Gödel into modern terms. When Silicon Valley's AI theorists push the logic of their case to explosive extremes, they defy the most crucial findings of 20th century mathematics and computer science. All logical schemes are incomplete and depend on propositions that they cannot prove. Pushing any logical or mathematical argument to extremes, whether renormalized infinities or parallel universe multiplicities, scientists impel it off the cliffs of Gödelian incompleteness. This is a quote from Robert Mercer. We are the oracle with respect to problems involving the question, what does the history of past market reactions in the presence of then-known information about the then-known currency state of the market tell us about the future of the market? This is an idea attributed to Kurzweil. Semantic search is an extension of human intelligence. All these pursuits reflect a breakdown of terrestrial intelligence. The intellectuals of this era are simply blind to the reality of consciousness. Consciousness is who we are, how we think, and how we know. It echoes the religious intuitions and psychological identity. It is the essence of mind as opposed to machine. It is the source of creativity and free will. If you don't understand it, you may have a theory of computers, but you do not have a notion of intelligence. Gilder had a great phrase that I wrote down into my notes that says kaleidoscope brain. What he meant by this, I believe, is talking about the ability to put our mind space through different mental models as lenses and to be able to see things from with a variety of filters. Gilder goes into the OSI layers that make up the telecom network. So some note that I took here is the finite physical limitations to fiber last mile networks with definitive costs operating in the face of government influenced price structures and rising bandwidth demands due to content resolution. Talking about the medium is the message kind of thinking, we have the monolith, which is physical, and metaverse, which is conceptual. And this is an analogy for the physical conduit and the non-physical content that travels over it. This next quote is relating to net neutrality as well. The nearly infinite demand implicit in free runs into the finitude of bandwidth, optical innovation, and finance, a finitude that reflects the inexorable scarcity of time. This finitude produces not zero marginal cost, but spikes of nearly infinite marginal costs. FCC rules divide information technology into segments, whether software versus platforms, wireless versus wireline, applications versus carriers, or content versus conduit. Manifesting this great divide in capital markets are the valuations of the relevant companies. In practice, the only factor that makes any serious difference for internet neutrality is investment in bandwidth. This book makes for a fantastic explainer of the early years of Bitcoin as well as token and blockchain technology. I highly recommend reading it if you are technology savvy and want a broad understanding of what is happening in the cryptocosm. Gilder has incredible access to many high-level personalities in Silicon Valley, with financiers and those with their finger on the pulse of politics. It is a well-rounded look at this sector from a number of angles that many folks would benefit from reading. Thanks for watching this video.